Welcome to another video from Time, the test prep experts. As you know, SBI has come up with its notifications for both the PO and clerk exams, and the exams are around the corner. So we are here with a series of videos to help you along in this journey. Today we are going to look at an English video, and the topic is fill in the blanks, which, as you know, is a very important question type in all these bank exams. Okay, so let us start. But before we discuss the questions, we have a request for you, a reminder for you. Please do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Time for Bank Exams, to get more such useful videos in all subject areas, which will help you with preparation for bank and most government exams. Okay, so today, I am going to take you through a few fill in the blanks questions. But before that, let us get a quick overview of this question type. Fill in the blanks. Today, we are going to look at questions with 2 blanks. You may get questions with 1 blank also. And typically, this question type tests your vocabulary. Some fill in the blanks questions may also test your knowledge of grammar or sentence construction and sentence structure. But today we are going to look at vocab based fill in the blanks questions. Okay. Now, of course, for fill in the blanks, vocab based fill in the blanks questions, you do need a sound command of vocabulary, but just mugging up words may not be enough. Why? Apart from knowing the meaning, you should also know the contextual application of words. Contextual application, because very often in a higher level exam like your bank exam, you may get options which are very close to each other. You may get 2 options where the actual words mean the same, but the contextual meaning is different. So in order to answer such questions correctly, you need to know, one, the connotation of words. What the word connotes means, what it means in a particular context. Okay, that you need to understand. Also, you need to know collocation. What is collocation? Collocation simply talks about what goes with what. Okay, certain pairs are meant to be, they are made for each other, and you cannot separate them. As in, let's take some examples. Okay, we say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, right? Do we say Happy Christmas and Merry New Year? Happy Christmas is still okay, but Merry New Year sounds silly, right? Why? Happy and Merry are synonyms. So technically, these should be interchangeable, but they are not. So Merry goes with Christmas traditionally. Similarly, you say black coffee for coffee without milk, right? What do you call chocolate which has very little milk content in it? Do you call it black chocolate? No. You call it dark chocolate. Do you say dark coffee? No. Basically, both are the same, but why do we do this? It is just a matter of usage. Okay, every language has its own usage, which has evolved with time. So you need to know this collocation also to pick the right words. Apart from these 2, you also need another CO, so connotation, collocation, and one more thing that starts with CO. What is that? Common sense. Why? Because a word may fit into a particular blank. It may even collocate with that particular whatever it goes with. However, it may not make sense. It may not render the sentence sensible. At the end of it, the sentence has to make complete sense too. Okay, please keep this in mind while we solve a few questions. The first question. Each question here has 2 blanks and we need to pick the appropriate pair of words. Do not act dash lest you should dash later. This usage of lest you should, right? It means so that you do not. Hmm? So, do not act in a certain manner so that you do not something later. Let us see. Do not act impulsively lest you should repent later. Makes sense, right? If you act impulsively at the spur of the moment, you may have to repent. Repent is to regret it. Feel sorry for what you have done. That makes sense. Let us look at the other options. Do not act obstinately. Obstinately means stubbornly. Lest you should ponder later. Ponder is to think over something. That does not make sense. If you are stubborn, you will have to think about it later. Does not make sense, right? Do not act imminently lest you should regret later. Regret is okay, but you don't say to act imminently. Imminent is something that is going to happen soon. So we can say this will happen imminently, means this will happen soon. But you cannot act imminently. That doesn't make sense. Do not act surreptitiously lest you should divulge later. Surreptitiously means in a very secretive manner. So do not act like that so that you do not have to divulge, reveal your secret later. First of all, divulge has to be followed by some object. Divulge a secret, etc. And this doesn't make sense, right? You don't act secretively so that you have to reveal your secret later. That doesn't make sense. That's why I said you need common sense also. The sentence does not make sense. Do not act brazenly. Brazenly means recklessly in a rash manner, lest you should err later. Don't act recklessly so that you make a mistake later. Mistake later, if you act recklessly, you will make a mistake immediately, not later. This also does not agree with common sense. Hence, one is the right answer. Okay. So you have understood how to solve fill in the blanks questions. Let's look at the next one. Due to globalization, companies have to dash in the open world, and hence the demand for qualified Indians who either have dash experience or have studied in international universities. So we are talking about globalization. Okay. So let us look at the options. Companies have to expand in the open world. Expand to new regions is okay. Expand in the open world. Who either have worldly experience or have studied in international universities. Worldly is related to the material world. That does not make sense. We are talking of globalization and all of us live in the worldly world only, right? This does not make sense. Companies have to flounder in the open world. Flounder is to be lost, to stumble. Why would globalization make companies stumble? And who either have worldwide experience. Okay, worldwide experience is still okay, global experience, but flounder does not fit. Due to globalization, companies have to compete in the open world makes perfect sense. Globalization means international competition, and hence the demand for Indians who either have global experience or have studied in international universities. Makes perfect sense. Companies have to stabilize in the open world. Globalization does not create a situation where one has to stabilize. That doesn't make sense. And mundane experience, mundane is very ordinary. Why would we need people with very ordinary experience? Doesn't make sense. Mundane means commonplace, ordinary, boring even. Companies have to establish in the open world. That usage is not correct. Establish in this context would be followed by establish themselves. You establish something, or here establish themselves. Earthly experience is again like worldly. We all have earthly experience only. No, we don't live in the celestial or divine plane. That does not make sense. Okay. So option 3 is the right answer. A good book possesses the power to dash a child's imagination, okay, to stimulate a child's imagination, right? And allows him or her to experience dash what he or she may never go through in his or her real life. So through the books, a child is able to experience things that they cannot experience in real life. Let us see. A good book possesses the power to instigate a child's imagination. The next word is a synonym of instigate, incite a child's imagination. Both these words mean to provoke people normally into doing something bad. These two words have negative connotations. The tone of these words, I mean, is negative. So you cannot use either of these words in the context of what a good book does to a child, right? Okay. Here again, covertly or clandestinely means secretly. So through the book, they secretly experience what they do not experience in real life also doesn't make sense. These two we can eliminate. Okay. To develop a child's imagination is fine. Allow them to experience stealthily. Stealthily is again in a sneaky, secretive manner. Why would a book give information to children in a secret manner? That doesn't make sense either. Excite a child's imagination, okay, correct, and allow him or her to experience vicariously what he or she may never go through in his or her real life. What is vicarious? A vicarious experience is one that you do not have directly, but you experience it through another means. Like when you read a book, which is set in, let us say, the 15th century, you are not going to the 15th century, but you get to experience through the book what life meant in the 15th century. Or you can say, parents get vicarious pleasure from their children's success, right? Very often our parents, whatever they could not experience in real life, they get to experience through us. So that is vicarious, makes sense. The power to expand a child's imagination and allow him or her to experience erroneously. Erroneously is by mistake. By erroneously, that does not make sense either. Hence, the answer is option 4. Okay. Again on good books. Good books develop the ability to dash between basic dash such as good and bad, right and wrong. Demarcate between basic ingredients. Ingredients of what doesn't make sense. Demarcate is still okay, but ingredients is definitely not okay. And you normally talk of demarcating boundaries, etc. Fine. Develop the ability to distinguish between basic perceptions such as good and bad. Yes, absolutely. Good and bad, right and wrong, these are ways we perceive things, and distinguish is the right word there. So this is fine, right? Differentiate between is also fine. Basic components. Components of what? Components of something. So this also doesn't make sense. Disregard between, no, you disregard something. You don't disregard between good and bad. That doesn't make sense. Basic attributes is okay, but disregard is not okay. Discern between, okay. Discern something is better than discern between, okay. Discern something. Anyway, it is still okay. Basic senses such as good and bad, these are not senses. Maybe sensibilities, but not senses. Hence, 2 is the answer. Okay. A man who has dash worldly life is not easily motivated to laugh because he has willingly dashed from society, himself from society. Okay. A very unusual sentence, but a man who has given up worldly life doesn't laugh easily, it seems, because he's cut off from society. I don't know if that is true at all, but let us see. We don't have to worry about whether the sentence is factually correct or not. Who has sacrificed worldly life and willingly ostracized himself from society doesn't make sense. First of all, you sacrifice worldly life for something, right? And you do not ostracize yourself from society. Ostracism means cutting somebody off from society. They do not do that to themselves. Okay? To be ostracized is to be excommunicated or to be cut off from society. They cannot do it to themselves. A man who has abandoned worldly life, that is fine. He has willingly denounced himself from society. No, to denounce is to condemn, to reject something, to condemn something. You cannot reject yourself from society. Does not make sense. A man who has renounced worldly life, renounce is to give up, abandon, and he has willingly isolated himself from society, makes sense, right? He has cut himself off from society. Who has forsaken worldly life is also okay, given up worldly life. He has willingly banished himself from society. Again, to banish, the word ban comes from banish. To banish is to excommunicate somebody. You don't do that to yourself, okay? Who has deserted worldly life? You don't desert worldly life. A place is deserted, but you do not desert something, okay? The usage is wrong. Willingly detached himself from society may be okay. First part is wrong. So, option 3. Ashoka, the greatest of the Mauryan emperors, dashed his philosophy of harmony and religious tolerance through his edicts, dash on rocks or monolithic pillars. You know that Ashoka's edicts are his works or his the things that he preached. Okay, those were inscribed or written on pillars. We all know of the Ashoka pillar, right? It is part of one of our national symbols or emblems. So let us see. The greatest of the Mauryan emperors depicted his philosophy of harmony and religious tolerance through his edicts, symbolized on, doesn't make sense. You can't depict your okay, you can depict your philosophy through some pictures, but not through the edicts. And moreover, edicts symbolized on doesn't make sense. Edicts symbolized by something would make sense. Okay. Propagated his philosophy of harmony and religious tolerance. Propagated is spread. Edicts are inscribed on. Yes, you know, these are called inscriptions, carved on, carvings, right? So this should be fine. Sermonized his philosophy. Though a sermon is some kind of lesson that you give, to sermonize is not usually said in such a positive sense. To sermonize is to preach unnecessarily, okay? And through his edicts sculpted on, it is not sculpted actually, engraved or inscribed, okay? Sculpture is something different, right? Something created by carving, but this is inscription. Preached his philosophy of, yes, preached is okay. Through his edicts, circumscribed on, no. Circumscribe is to limit something, okay? To place restrictions on something. So this does not make sense. Exhibited his philosophy. You don't exhibit your philosophy, right? Through his edicts, engraved. Engraved is okay, but exhibited is not correct. Hence, the answer is option 2. Okay. Tansen, the famous singer at the Mughal Emperor Akbar's court, is dashed with having dashed the Hindustani music by composing many melodies. Okay. Normally, you say someone is credited with. Since you have with here, that gives us a clue. The what fits in here perfectly is credited with. And we have that expression here. In the exam, if you want to cheat, once you get an idea that the first blank may contain this word, you can look for the word in the options and you can see whether the other part is okay. Is credited with having enriched Hindustani music, right? He enriched Hindustani music. by composing many melodies. So this is our answer. Is attributed with having. No, something is attributed to somebody. Okay, you don't say somebody is attributed with. Fostered is still okay. Implicated with, no. Somebody is implicated in a case means they are found guilty or they are blamed for it. Okay, nurtured is okay. Alleged with, no. And an allegation is a negative thing, right? He is allegedly means he is accused of doing something. There is nothing to accuse. This is something positive that Tansen has contributed. So this is also wrong. Fortified is okay. The second blank words are all okay here. Is claimed with having. No, claimed to have done something. Again, the usage. Okay. Enhanced is okay. So option 5 is the right answer. Next, most people the world over believe that dash is wholly due to dash life events. Let us see. Repression is due to misunderstanding life events does not make any sense. Repression is to suppress something, and misunderstanding life events. You don't use misunderstanding as an adjective like that, right? Misunderstanding of something you can say. So this is wrong. Depression is wholly due to adverse life events. Okay. So many people think that depression is only because of negative life events. That makes sense. Rejection is due to great life events. Absurd, doesn't make any sense. Success is wholly due to unfortunate life events. Again, very absurd, doesn't make sense. Sickness is due to unlucky life events. Is this okay? Definitely not. The word may fit in there, but again, common sense, right? Obviously, sickness is not due to unlikely life events. So the sentence doesn't make sense. Hence, okay. Farming in the American Midwest is dashed by larger farms, marked by or characterized by, right? Larger farms, high dash, and advanced technology. Okay, so it is a positive sentence. Let's see. Pushed by larger farms, high failure, and advanced technology. That does not make any sense. By failure here is ignored by larger farms, high industrial. Farming is ignored by larger farms. We can straight away eliminate this. You don't need to waste too much time. Is characterized by larger farms, high productivity and advanced technology. Already makes sense. So I put a tick mark, but we have to see the other options. Punctuated by, the usage is punctuated with, means it has, but doesn't make sense. High rains, you don't say. Heavy rains is okay. Performed by larger farms, high attrition, again doesn't make sense. Attrition is people leaving jobs, okay? So doesn't make sense because the whole meaning of the sentence is quite positive here. Hence option 3. Senior generals were arguing for a or an dash policy of military dash in the East. Okay. Senior generals wanted some kind of policy, maybe an adjective here, and military something, maybe a noun there. Let's see. Aggressive policy of military expansion makes perfect sense. Reduced policy of military superiority. Why would they want to reduce their military superiority? Does not, and you don't say reduced policy. Subdued policy of military overstatement. Subdued and overstatement are contradictory, and both of these do not agree with the context of the military force. An overt policy of military dominance. Okay, overt is very open and explicit, but when it comes to military, you don't say a very open policy, right? Aggressive policy makes sense. Military dominance is okay, but military dominance in the East means military is going to rule these countries. That also doesn't make sense, and overt does not agree with this context. Okay. A renewed policy of military supplies in the East. Renewed policy and military supplies, neither of these make sense. Option 1 is our answer. Okay. I hope you're getting how we are choosing the answers for all these questions. The civil dash industry. What industries do you know? Civil aviation, civil engineering, okay, has been the focus of particular dash in the context of global climate change debates. So the context is this. Fine. The civil agrarian industry, you don't use these words civil and agrarian together, of particular consumerism. Nothing, none of these make sense. The civil military industry, you don't call military an industry. Particular complaint in the context of climate change, totally absurd, doesn't make sense. The civil supplies, or civil supplies also there is a word, but civil supplies industry, not really, has been the focus of particular grievance. How is civil supplies related to global climate change? Doesn't make sense. Civil engineering industry has been the focus of particular attention in the context of global climate change debates. Civil engineering is okay, attention is also okay here, but how is it related to climate change? To some extent, civil engineering, of course, can impact climate change, but not strong enough to say it has been the focus of particular attention. No? Let us see. The civil aviation industry has been the focus of particular controversy in the context of global climate change debates. Why? Because of the emissions, carbon emissions, right? Aviation is one of the biggest polluting industries, and that is why they've made this statement. So 11, the answer is 5. Though he may have been secretly dash about the lack of certain physical abilities, he was never dash. Okay, so he may have been secretly upset about certain lack of certain abilities, but he was secretly upset maybe, but not explicitly, right? Let's see. Secretly happy about the lack of certain physical abilities. Would anybody be happy about it? No. He was never convinced of what? Doesn't make any sense. He may have been secretly frustrated about the lack of physical abilities. Makes sense. He was never bitter. Okay, to be bitter is to be full of negativity. So secretly he may have felt some frustration, but that bitterness never showed. Okay. He may have been secretly told about the lack of certain physical abilities. He was never capable. Here the word is though, which indicates contrast. He may have been secretly informed that he lacks certain physical abilities, okay. And if he was never capable, then there is no contrast between those two parts, right? He lacks certain physical abilities and he is never capable. So though doesn't make sense here. Though he may have been secretly subdued about the lack of certain physical abilities, he was never assured. Doesn't make sense. Subdued is to be quiet about something. You don't say secretly subdued. And he was never assured of what? Again, though should show a contrast. So he may have been secretly something, but this should be opposite of that. So this makes sense. Opposite of that means it should show that he was never the same thing. So frustrated and bitter are not opposites. They are sort of synonymous. But what I meant is never will show the opposite. So secretly he may have been frustrated, but he was never bitter. Okay. This also doesn't make sense. He may have been secretly convinced about the lack of certain physical abilities. Okay. He was never rich. What does having physical disabilities have to do with being rich? Doesn't make sense. Hence, the answer is option 2. The government was under dash to find and dash as many of the freed prisoners as they could. Okay. The government was under compulsion, okay, to find and feed as many of the freed prisoners as they could. Is it the government's job to feed free prisoners? No. Under instruction, you don't say under instruction, you only say instructed to. And to house as many of the freed prisoners doesn't make sense. Anyway, as I said, this is wrong. Under pressure, okay, to find and deport as many of the freed prisoners as they could. So deport is to send prisoners out of the country to wherever they belong, normally to their home country, which is a common practice. Was under scrutiny to find and save as many of the freed prisoners. They're already freed, so why should they be saved? Also under scrutiny for something, not to, okay? Under control, you don't say under control, so that expression is wrong. Find and treat as many. Why do they need treatment? We don't know if they have any medical problem. 3 is the answer. Government policies help local firms to acquire sufficient technological dash to dash in the international economy. Capabilities to compete is perfectly good. Technological ideas to float. You want the firms to float in the international economy. That doesn't make sense. Technological local firms cannot acquire technological innovation. To share indeed, to share what? Share should be followed by what they are sharing. Doesn't make sense. Technological prowess or power, okay. To educate that in the educate somebody, it should be right. Educate should be followed by somebody or something. Technological skills to practice in the international economy. Firms do not practice, they exist and they compete. Okay, again, collocation, what goes with what? Yeah, one is the answer. One more question we have. Organisms carry in themselves the reflection of the whole biological dash of which they are the dash, end dash, okay? Reflection of the whole biological revolution of which they are the end times does not make sense. They are not talking about, there's no context for a biological revolution here, right? The reflection of the whole biological evolution of which they are the end product. Every organism is the end product of the evolution that has happened till then. This makes sense. Existence, biological existence of which they are the end note. Why will an an organism be an end note of a process? Not sensible. Reflection of the whole biological clock of which they are the end providence. Very random words. Biological clock, you know, is our age rapidly advancing. That doesn't make sense here. End providence. Providence means fate. Okay, so no. Biological superiority of which they are the end game. What biological superiority, which organisms and what end game doesn't make any sense. Easy, right? Two is the right answer. Okay. There you go, students. Hope this fill in the blanks exercise has given you some ideas on how to solve these question types. Like I said, remember the actual meaning, remember the collocation, and also use your common sense. Okay. To get more such videos, please subscribe to all our channels in various social media platforms. The links are given here in the description box of the video. If you want to enroll for classroom coaching, you are most welcome to drop in at your nearest time center. We have an almost pan-India presence. If you want to join online courses, please use the link given here. See you in another useful video. All the best for your exams. Thank you.